For our second application tutorial, let's create a little game, a random number guessing game. Let's dive right in. To be able to get a random number, in Greenfoot, if you went with that, there were some classes built in that you could have referenced. There's a few ways we can do it in Java, but we're just going to go with a nice, straightforward way for now. I'm going to be referencing a class conveniently called random. I'm just going to call it rand. I'm going to reference the class, and notice I need to import it. Control-Shift-I. Util random is now imported. So now whenever I type in rand, I'm going to be able to actually get different types of random numbers. I'm just going to get an integer, the next int. And one thing that I will see in this next int description is that I can actually put in a number that determines the range of the next int. So when I put this in here, if I type in 100, that's going to be between the number 0 and 100. So it's going to include the number 0, but it won't include the number 100. It's inclusive of the bottom, which is 0, and exclusive of the top, which is 100. So I'm going to get a next int. And what I want to do is I want to say my rand number, I'm going to define a new number, is going to be the next int. Let's just see how this is working. Let's print the random number out. This case, 32, 90, 43, 38, 42, 34, 48, 11, 80, 23. You can see that the number is being generated each time as a random number. That's what we want. Wonderful. So what do we want to have happen in this game? We want our program to generate a random number, and then we want the user to try and guess it and be given some hints, kind of like you're too low or too high, so that they can kind of eventually guess it. And maybe we'll add in some more functionality after the case, but for now, let's think. What do we need to build into this game? 1, I need a menu to decide for player to decide to keep playing or quit. Second, I need to get input of player guess. 3, I need to compare player guess with random number. And 4, I need to generate a new random number for each round, so that, I mean, if it's the same random number each time, that's going to be a little bit of an easy game to play. So let's think, is that going to encompass kind of how the game wants to go? Compare player guess with the random number. If unsuccessful, give hint. And if successful, then that will be a victory for the game here. So let's start at number 1. Let's create a menu here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a set of choices for the player. So I need to first define an int, which is player input. We'll call it here. We'll set it to 0. And I'll say while player input does not equal, let's just say 1 will be play again and 2 will be I want to quit the round. Well, player input does not equal 2. I'm going to give a player a message. I'm going to say, welcome to the random number guessing game. And then I'm going to print out a new instruction. I'm going to say, press 1 to play a round. And then on a new line, I'm going to say, press 2 to quit. And actually, one thing that I'm actually, that looks good. Okay, so press 2 to quit, plus 1 to play around. Awesome. So what I've done here is just have to keep playing or to quit. Now we need to think about if they don't press 1 to play around, then I need to be able to deal with that somewhere. So I'm going to make a little sub note here. What if they don't press 1 or 2? As a coder, I need to be thinking about these side scenarios, about what someone might do. They might put in some other number, maybe they're confused, or maybe they have a little slip of the finger to deal with here. So one thing, now I'm going to program this game in a slightly different way than the last program here. I'm going to use some methods to define some of the gameplay. First, I'm going to set an if statement. I'm going to say if player input equals 1. If that's the case, I want to play the game. Down here, I'm going to create a public static void play game method. That's going to contain the code for the guessing game. So if input equals 1, play a game. Else if player input does not equal 2. So why am I stating it this way? I'm saying if it's 1, then play the game. And then it will skip this because it's a chain. But if it's not 1, as long as it's not 2, I want it to do something. If it is 2, I just want it to break the while chain. So I'm not even going to deal with 2 in here. If it's not 1, I'm going to say you input a bad value. Please try again. The input's not 2. And this will only run if I didn't put in a 1 or a 2. And then I'll tell them bad value, please try again, so something actually happens in my game. Okay, so if they don't press 1 or 2, I just send a message to tell them to fix their problem. The menu for deciding to play or quit. If they chose to, what happens? Well, none of this is printed, but it's going to loop back around, and then player input is 2, so the while loop will end. So that's the exit condition. So if they didn't do any of these things, in this case, I can say if I want to have a message here, I can just say else. Else means this is the scenario where they press 2. Out. Thanks for playing. Goodbye. And that will deal with the output for 2 there. So let's see what happens when I run this right now. Aha, I have an infinite loop because I haven't actually gathered in the player input to actually cut this thing off though. So what I need to do is actually gather some input. So I need a scanner. Do I have a scanner in here yet? Nope, let's quickly add it. Public static scanner, scan equals new scanner of system.in. I need to import it, import my scanner. Great, scanner is available to my whole class now. So I'm gonna go player input equals scan next int. Awesome. So now when I run it, it'll actually let me do something here. 1, play around. Well, right now I have no code for the round, so it just loops back. If I press 3, it's going to say bad input value. Any other value will be a bad input value. And if I press 2, thanks for playing, goodbye. So this while loop is now in place. I've now set it up so that all my menu stuff works. This is dealt with. I need to get the input of the player guess next in my actual play game method here. So let's move on to this. Now remember, my scanner is in for the whole class, so I can reference it in any method as well. So I'm going to say int, actually first I'll say to the player, please guess a number between 0 and 100. And in this, I'm going to say a new int guess equals scan next int. So I just thought of a new condition you have to be aware of here. You can input a player guess. What if player guess is outside of game range? Well, that might be something that we want to if we want to make our program really robust. So if we guess the number 0 or like minus something or plus 1,000,000, we could have another loop in here that deals with that. I'm not going to do that right now. It's something for you to consider in your own implementations later. The logic of how our game works will work just fine if the player wants to be silly and do some kind of wacky guessing like that. So what have I done now? Well, I've gathered some information about the guess, and now I need to process it. So what I actually want to consider here is that I generated a random number up here. Is this the right place to generate the random number? The answer is no. I kind of led you to that. The problem is that I generated it once at the start of my program, and that random number will never change. I need to generate a new random number each time I play a game. Let's write it like this. Each time I play the game, I want to generate a new random number. And for now, I'm going to have it print out still, just so I can see it for testing purposes. So let's just see for a sec. I'm going to play around. The number is 9, so I can use this to do some testing. When the game is actually implemented, I'm going to want to not have it showing, but for now, that's going to be okay. So this is gather, player, guess, and process it. What's going on here? So here's the guess. So how are we going to process the guess? I'm going to say if guess is less than the random number, else if guess is greater than random number, That's our second scenario here. And finally, else will be if the guess is the random number. And so how am I actually going to deal with the game here and how I play it? So let's think about how this is going to work. If the guess is less than a random number, let's print out your guess is too low. If the guess is greater, your guess is too high. Otherwise, you got it. Congratulations. Let's see what happens when I run my program now. Let's play around. Let's say my number is 36. Let's say I guess 30. Your guess is too low. But there's a problem with my program right now. It goes right back to the menu. I don't have a way for my game to continue asking if I'm guessing here. And so that's a little bit of a problem. So what I need to do is I need to set a state of my game. We've done this a lot in Greenfoot, but I will see how we do this in here. We need some kind of a loop to be in place, and you might guess it. We're going to use a while loop here with a Boolean. I'm going to create a Boolean called guess, correct guess. I'm going to set it to false when I initialize the game. And I'm going to say while correct guess. As long as we haven't found the correct guess yet. And I'm going to surround all my code. Let's just make sure this is in the while loop. So I want to surround everything in my code with the while loop here. And this then will be the close for my method. So I'm just going to zoom out a tiny bit so I can see this. The while loop should be lined up like this. Everything inside of it should be tabbed over once. Okay, at any point if you need to pause, feel totally free. I know I'm going through this kind of quick. So what do I have here? I have a control. Correct guess is false. While I haven't guessed correctly, I want you to be running all this stuff. So far, I never set correct guess to true, so this should loop forever. Let's just see here. What happens if I play around? The number is 62, let's say 0, your guess is too low. Now here's a problem. It created a new random number. I'm doing some processing and testing as I go through here, just to make sure I set things in the right places. This is an important thing to be doing. I need to make sure that my random number is not generated inside this loop. It needs to be generated outside of it, so it only generates once. Let's try again. The random number is 32. 0 is too low. Let's guess again. Number is too low. Let's guess 50. The number is too high. Let's guess 32. You got it. Congratulations. Here's the problem. It wants me to still keep on guessing, even though I guessed it right. So I haven't quite finished coding all my logic here yet. If I got it, then, well, I need to set correct guess to true. Now that the correct guess is true, let's play around. This time, the number is actually 0. Let's guess 1. It's too high. Let's guess 0. You got it. Congratulations. Welcome to the number guessing game. It restarts with a new round. One thing I noticed here really briefly, you got it. Congratulations. I don't like that this is so close. So one thing that I'm going to do here is whenever I say welcome to the random number guessing game, this is one way I can do this here. I'm simply going to go sout print line. Maybe I'll do this a couple times. Empty lines. Let's play. Let's guess the right number. You got it, congratulations, and it leaves space. So it creates space each time to show each new round, which is cool. All right, so what do I have here? I have a game where I initially set up a player input that I gather inside of this loop. As long as it's not 2, then I'm playing the game. I set up some information to the player, I scan the input, and then based off the input, I either play the game, ask for a new input, or exit the game. And this will keep on looping in this while loop until I've got an input that does something. Primarily 1 and 2 will actually do something. The 1 will make me play the game, and the 2 will break me out of the while loop. In my method to play the game, I'm going to say the correct guess hasn't been found yet. I'm going to generate a random number for each new round. While I haven't found the number, I'm going to ask for an input. I'm going to gather the input, and I'm going to compare it to the random number that I generated. If it's too big, or if it's too small, tell them it's too small. If it's too big, tell them it's too big. Otherwise, I'm going to say you got it, and then break out of the while loop by changing the correct guess to true. I can take this one step further by adding in a little fun piece of information for the player. Let's go up here and add, actually, why don't we do this? We'll do something slightly different here. Let's go like this. When we create a new game, I'm going to create a new int called num guesses. I'll set it to 0 initially. And within my program, I'm going to say, whenever I make a guess, I'm going to increase num guesses. Whenever I make a guess, actually, why don't I not do this inside of here? So I'm coding live, so I'm just thinking through the best spot for things. Each time I have to make a guess, I'm going to make num guesses increase. And then what I'm going to do is when I reach the end here, I'm going to say, you got it in, close off the string, num guesses, and I'll print out the number of guesses that it took to actually get to your answer. So let's play around. Number between 1 and 100. Let's say I guess 4, too low, 20, too low, 50, 60, too low, 65, too low, 70, too high, 66, too low, 67, too low, 68. You got it in 8 guesses. Congratulations. Let's play it again. 82. Let's go 82. You got it in 1 guesses. You can make it say 1 guess with a different condition in there if you want it to be really grammatically accurate. That's something that you can fine tune if you want. And otherwise, I think that I'm pretty happy with how that all plays out there. And so there's a nice little application for a little game that you could play in a text-based environment using random numbers. So what did we learn in this lesson? We practiced a little bit more with some different layers of while loops. We used a method to create some gameplay features, and we learned how to use a basic randomizer to create a random number. Some things that you can use in your own applications.